All right. So, for those that don't know me, I am Dr. Amanda. I am your uh, enlightenment, Atkins Enlightenment Lifestyle Medicine physician. So, today I'm going to be talking about some things that people have been asking about for their blood sugars. They're like, why is my blood sugar spiking after meals? Okay, so you say you have checked your blood sugars after meal and felt completely confused, because this is what people are like, what in the world is going on? You look at the number and think, how in the world did it get this high? That's what they're saying. Like, Dr. Amanda, I don't know why it goes so high after I eat. Because you like, I made a good choice. I thought I didn't go to the drive-through. I didn't have dessert. And you were tracking, but it just seemed off. Okay. So what can you do? You're actually trying to do better. Okay. I know you're trying to do better. And yet your blood sugar is still spiked. You're like, oh my goodness. And in the moment, you definitely can feel frustrated and it can feel discouraging. You're like, what is the use of doing any of this? And you're like, I'm just going to go back to eating the way I was if my blood sugar is going to go higher, right? So I do not want you to feel doubtful or like this is not working. But I want you to think, well, what may you be missing? Maybe you even start to think, I'm missing something, or something's not working. But what happens here is not random. Like, your blood sugars aren't random usually. We call it a random blood sugar, but your body is responding. And you want to know why your blood sugar is responding this way. Why is the blood sugar spiking? Okay. So once you understand, of course, the reasoning, because of course I always like to go back and help you to understand what's going on, so then you can correct it in real time. Okay, correct it in real time. So today, we're going to walk through, what we can do, what's really causing your blood sugars to spike after meals, and what most people are never taught, again, and how to stabilize your blood sugars. Again, your blood sugars will go up and down. That's normal, whether you have a diagnosis of diabetes or not. Using simple, practical strategies that can actually help you, though, and you can actually apply as soon as we get through today's video. Like, you'll be able to apply that. You don't have to do anything that's hard. It's just about understanding better. Okay. So let's start to where, like, what it looks like when your blood sugars are high. Okay. So your blood sugar is supposed to, number one, rise after you eat. Okay. That is normal. So food becomes glucose. And we talked about this on other videos. So your body only recognizes sugar or glucose, especially your brain. Okay. So glucose is the fuel for your body. Okay. So you're not going to get around it. You're going to actually have actual rise in your blood sugar. Okay. But the goal is not just a rise. The goal is a controlled rise. Okay. We want to control the rise of your blood sugar. And what we don't want is this quick spikes. So when your blood sugar rises quickly or goes higher than expected and stays elevated longer, that's when it creates stress on the inside of the body. Okay. So it's not just your blood sugars are rising, it's more of that the blood sugar spikes. It spikes high, and it actually stays high for a long time. That's what causes the issues for us when we have diabetes and causes the inflammation in our body. Okay. So what happens when our blood sugar spikes? Okay, so it increases the insulin resistance. It causes fat storage, which, again, usually around the midsection. It causes inflammation and energy crashes. Okay. And so this, we don't want any of these things to occur, right? We have to actually control the blood sugars actually rise. Again, you cannot control the rise, but I'm sorry, it will rise. That's normal, but we can control the rise. Okay. So our goal is stability, okay? And to get there, we have to understand what's driving the blood sugar spikes, okay? And what can that happen? The reasons that we're going to go through, okay? So what can we look at of why your blood sugar is spiking? And what it can look like is, one, the way we put our meals together. And that's usually the most common reason. Even if your meal is mostly carbohydrates, that's usually why. So this is where carbs gets their bad name from, okay? Where people think I can't eat carbs because my blood sugar goes high. But carbohydrates, especially good plant-based carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are mostly vegetables. Well, the good carbohydrates are the healthful. I don't like to use good and bad, but the healthy carbohydrates are mostly like the vegetables. So you don't want to leave those out. But are the whole grains, things of that nature. So we don't want to leave those out, but we have to actually pair that. So you don't want to just eat the carbohydrates all by themselves. So like our vegetables, our whole grains, we want to actually pair that with the fiber, a good plant protein, and a healthy fat. So it doesn't digest as quickly. Because remember, we're trying to avoid the spikes in the blood sugar. So when the digestion is fast, the glucose enters our bloodstream quickly and the spike goes. And then that's where we, again, get the inflammation and the fat storage, all the things that we do not want. Okay, so we want to look at that. Okay, so when I say protein, I always like to um, preference this. I definitely believe that when we look at foods, we want to look at it in the whole manner. So I really emphasize things that are lower in inflammation. So that's why I really promote plant-based proteins as much as possible, not animal-based proteins, because the animal-based proteins have a lot of cholesterol, usually salt and fats. Okay, so that causes more inflammation for people. So we want to look at that. Okay, so specific foods that can actually slow down the glucose absorption. Um, uh, that we want to slow down the glucose absorption. So that means that when we eat our food, it will not cause the spike so high. Okay, so that's like lentils. I love lentils. So there's so many different types of lentils, so many different ways you can cook lentils. Because people are like, you can eat the same foods all the time. So you can use the lentils, you can use chickpeas, you can use black beans, you can use tofu, tempeh, which is a soy protein, and edamame. And these actually plant-based proteins also contain fiber, which you need also. So if you have a plant-based protein, you also get the fiber, and then you add that with a carbohydrate that actually can slow down the digestion to help stabilize your blood sugars. When you actually look at ways you can actually make lentils into like different types of meals, you don't have to just eat it plain. You can add lentils like for Mexican style, you can add it like Indian style, you can add it like Asian style. And it just depends on how you pair the actual seasonings that you do. There are so many different ways you can prepare like lentils and beans, and even tofu. Like tofu, most people are like, oh, this is so bland. It tastes like nothing. It tastes like whatever you want it to taste like. Okay, so you can actually use these different plant-based proteins to your advantage, because it doesn't have to taste like just I'm eating chicken or I'm just eating a hamburger, anything like that. You can actually spice it up. And there's so many different, especially wonderful plant-based chefs out there that you can get recipes from that actually can help, so you don't feel like it's a boring meal. It's not tasty, because I hear that a lot, like, Dr. Amanda, I'm not eating like you're saying because the food does not taste good. It can taste wonderful. So just actually be open to, what you can actually do to change, because again, we are looking to actually cause our body to heal, decrease inflammation that's going on in our body, especially when we already have a diagnosis of diabetes, pre-diabetes, or insulin resistance. Okay, so definitely be open to that. And I'll try to come back at the end and put in some of my some different websites that have a good plant-based protein meals that you can actually put together. Okay, so so the first reason I got off my reasonings with getting your blood sugars from spiking is to actually um, helping with meal composition. So meal composition. So seasonings that are good. I will put that. I'll come back and put that in the chat so you can actually have that, because it's a mixture. It's not just one. So I like to use sometimes some like Chinese five spices, turmeric and garlic powder, and it's the way that they come together that's actually very good. we do, especially when you have a diagnosis of diabetes or pre-diabetes, you want to be careful with different sauces because sometimes that can add in more sugar. So, but I'll come back and put those in there. So you have that. And again, put in actual recipes because when you put it all together, that will actually be very good. Okay. So, because it definitely takes something to think outside the box because you're used to adding, like most people like salt and pepper or seasoning salt. Like that's how I grew up. Like that was all the seasonings I knew. But there's so many different things out there that you can actually put together for meals. Okay. So I'll come back and put in some examples for y'all so you can actually see that. Okay. So the second reason why we want to make sure that we actually do things together for our meals is because carbohydrates eaten alone again causes the blood sugars to spike. So, for example, if you eat fruit by itself, so that's why people are afraid to eat fruit, and I have to go back and tell them the fruit itself is not bad. If you eat toast by itself, that's like again the pure carbohydrates, rice, as I was saying, and these things can cause the fast rise in your blood sugars. And so instead of eating like a fruit or toast or rice alone, again, we want to pair it with the plant-based protein. So like a handful of walnuts, adding in chia seeds or flax seeds, or even edamame, adding hummus to toast. Or, oh my gosh, like if you have like a good whole grain bread that's toasted and put on like different hummus, like I like classic roasted red pepper. That is like wonderful and very fulfilling because you have the carbohydrates, you have protein, and you have fiber, and you have a little bit of fat. And that together actually makes it to where your blood sugars don't spike and you actually feel satisfied. So it's not like you're hungry immediately. You can even add in some leafy greens because any way you can add in leafy greens, that always helps. Even adding in like a tofu or mashed like chickpeas, something like that. Well, hummus is mashed chickpeas. It just has some more stuff in there. But if you don't have the hummus and you have chickpeas on hand, you can mash them up and put that on toast. Mix the rice and make a like a rice bowl, adding in mostly greens because you still have to be careful with how much whole grains you add in because that can still spike your blood sugars again with the carbohydrates. Okay. We also want to look at portion sizes. So that I was alluding to that when we were talking about like a rice bowl. You want to make sure that the rice, you want to make it a small amount. You want to make sure then again, you add in the lentils, the black beans, add in lots of veggies. Again, if you base it with a good leafy green, then put a little bit of rice on there, and then add in your beans. So that is a good, again, it's fiber, it's protein, a little bit of carbohydrates. And then if you look at the volume, your body responds differently to having all those together in a meal. So again, your blood sugars won't spike. Then you want to look at the order. So this is often overlooked. Okay. So if you start your meal with carbohydrates, it's more likely to spike. But if you start it with vegetables, again, or leafy greens, and then add in the protein, like the lentils or beans, then it slows the digestion down. So simply just a shift in the way that you're eating can actually help. So usually, even at restaurants, they do this. Like they start you with a salad, so that actually helps. Fill up with leafy greens. Make sure that you add in a little bit of fiber and protein to those salads because people are like, salads are boring. They don't fill me up. I'm still hungry. Add that in so you can actually feel full with it. Okay. And that will actually help for the rest of the meal. Okay. So now we'll get to a deeper issue of talking about insulin resistance. So that's another reason why. So it's not that you don't have the insulin because again, or that you're actually injecting insulin. It's more like our body already has insulin. That's how our body works to actually bring the blood sugars down. And when we have the insulin resistance, that means our insulin is not working efficiently. Okay. So that means glucose stays in the blood sugar longer because insulin is like the key that unlocks the door to actually let the glucose go from your bloodstream into the cell, into your muscles, so you actually move around. Okay, so you want to be very conscious of insulin resistance. And if we go back to before, we're talking about like previous videos of like people thinking that their blood sugar is high because of sugar or pure carbohydrates, and that's not usually the case. It's usually more of the saturated fat that's blocking the keyhole. So the key, that's the insulin, can't get in the keyhole to unlock it. So that's another video for another time that I've already talked about. So you can go back and watch previous videos to look at that. Okay. So we want to be very careful with our insulin resistance. So again, really honing in on trying to look at what we're actually pairing, even with the healthy fats. You want to look at the label to make sure it doesn't have saturated fat, hopefully zero in there. But if it does have some, very, very little. And then you actually then want to look at the portion size. Okay. So we want to really try to resist foods that are saturated fat, which goes back to why I was saying that I try to steer people away, especially again, if you already have some insulin resistance from a lot of animal-based proteins, because a lot of them are full of saturated fat. Okay, so if we can get rid of the saturated fats, then we're on to the next step with the carbohydrate. So the saturated fat is the first step. So if you're a person that hasn't heard that before about the saturated fat, please start looking at that. And of course, you can always reach out to me, Dr. Amanda, work with Ami to actually help you to actually readjust your meal planning to help with the saturated fat. Okay. Then we want to actually look at the speed at which you eat. Always, when I think about the speed of eating, I compare how my dad says that his dad ate versus to how my dad eats, how long. And it's like night and day. So my dad was like, my grandfather was in the military, and so they didn't know how quickly or how long they would have to eat. So it was like as soon as he sat down, you look at his plate, it's full. You turn around, you turn back, and the food is gone. As opposed to my dad, he sits there and will eat, it seems like for days. Like, Dad, are you still at the table eating? So it's very, very interesting to see. So anyone that knows my dad and actually watched him eat, you would know that. Like it seems just slower. I don't know. So I would say you want somewhere in the middle. But chewing your food at least 22 times, that is something that people always are like, what in the world, 22 times before you swallow? That will definitely help you to slow down eating. Sometimes when we're very hungry, we don't realize how fast we're eating, but give our body a chance to digest. So actually putting our fork down between bites, trying to again chew the food, take deep breaths while we're eating, things of that nature will definitely help to slow down the speed that we eat our food. Okay. Next is liquid calories, and I really I like go back and forth with this because we want to look at the ways that we actually get in calories, because I don't want people to necessarily think calories in, calories out, because that can be kind of deceiving. But when it comes to liquid calories, like the juices that we have, the sodas that we may drink, teas, different things like that, that if you look at the calories in there, like you're actually drinking calories that actually are going to contribute to your blood sugars, that's going to contribute to your fat storage, because most of the time when we drink our calories, our body does not recognize it and it ends up storing it as fat. And where does the fat store? In the midsection, for women, around our hips and thighs. So you just want to be careful with that. So I see a lot of people that's like juicing, and juices, like it's going to spike your blood sugar quickly. And and if you think about it, like sometimes we tell people that have a diagnosis of diabetes, if your blood sugar is low and you feel like you're going to pass out, try to drink some juice. Why? Because it's going to spike the blood sugar immediately. And we don't want that. We don't want in the long term for our blood sugars to be spiking. Okay. So we want to be very careful with the liquid calories, and even with smoothies. So I've definitely been a person that's done smoothies before. We don't want to necessarily have those all the time. And because again, you can actually have that, you can drink, 500 calories very quickly, because that a smoothie, it's like similar to a milkshake because people like them sweet. But if you do have it, you want to make sure you pair it with lots and lots and lots. Did I say lots of leafy greens, okay? Spinach, kale, arugula, anything like that, that kind of helps. The berries, because berries can be sweet, but usually less likely and less they're the healthful fruit for your blood sugar, and it won't spike it as quickly. Chia seeds, I like ground flaxseed, a plant-based protein powder. You have to be careful with those because if you look at that, like a scoop is like can be up like 200 calories or more, especially if they have flavoring in there. It can have extra sugar in there. You have to be careful with that. And then like an unsweetened plant-based milk. Okay, so with that, if you look at that, that's your fiber, your protein, a little bit of fat, not the saturated fat, and then that can help slow the spike. Okay. Um, let's see, what else do we have? So we looked at meal composition, the speed of meals, liquid, calories, and oh, how can I forget? Stress and sleep. How that actually responds to our blood sugars. Like most time we're thinking of food that can cause our blood sugars to spike. But if we actually look at that, the hormones, stress hormones raise our blood sugars. Poor sleep contributes to insulin resistance, just the same as meals. So you definitely have to be making sure that you are sleeping and sleeping well. And it is a big correlation between what you eat, when you eat it, how much you eat, and the timing that you do that before sleep. That can actually cause issues with your sleep too. So you may be eating a bad meal, you're like wanting comfort, and then you go to sleep, and then you don't sleep well because you ate bad, and then that didn't help with your sleep. And so that just goes into a cycle. So then your blood sugar spikes because it's causing increase in your stress hormones from the food that you ate and not eating well. So it all correlates together. So we had to be very, very careful and very aware of what's going on in our body and try to move our timing of our food at a certain time, move it up to get that space between digestion and detoxing. And our body actually needs that time for both. So we want to eat our meal. We want to make sure that it's fully digested before we go to sleep, because then sleep is a time for detoxing and restoring, which our liver, kidneys, lungs all do naturally. So if we give our body that chance to do it, it will actually help. And so we won't have the blood sugar rises. It won't contribute to the inflammation that's going on in our body. Okay. So you have all these things. There's so many different things. So if you think about it, we go back to what you can do differently. Okay. So just shift the way that we're thinking. You can eat so many good meals and still have carbohydrates, because again, I don't want you to be afraid of carbohydrates when you leave here. And again, we want to think about it, the whole food. So what would that look like if we just align our foods to prevent these blood sugar spikes? The meal that is mostly carbohydrates. When should we cut off food intake? Oh, okay, good question. So I like to do it at least 2 hours before bedtime. And really trying to work with that shifting. When you go to bed, you want to actually have a bedtime, a set bedtime, no matter what you're doing, whether it's the weekend or the weekdays. You have a bedtime, and you want to make sure your food is done. And I'm really trying to work with my family. I'm glad you mentioned that now, to actually have dinner, and then we go for a walk, because that will help bring our blood sugars down. That was a different video where we were walking after meals, or if you see some of our videos during the week of what you can do, and then have a rest time. So after your walk, drink some water, no more snacking or anything like that. And then it'll be time to wind down for bed, doing like your meditation, reading, we have bath time and things of that nature. So you can actually do that. So food, you want to cut off at least 2 hours before bedtime. And if you can actually walk after your last meal, that will even help more for your insulin resistance. So hopefully you can do that, because that does wonders, definitely does wonders for you. So how can we pull this all together? So I want to give you all a few examples of just general, and like I said, I'll come back in and put in some websites that have some good plant-based recipes that can help with insulin resistance and blood sugars. Or even maybe able to try to put together a like a PDF or something like that to actually you can actually grab and try some different meals and see how that works out for you for especially with the seasoning. So what can an easy meal look like? Because I'm a person that I may do the recipe once and then try to see how I can make it as simple as possible. Okay. So what is one of my favorite meals is I like whole grain oats. Steel cut oats are usually the best because they cook slower, digest slower. Add in some flaxseed, a little bit of plant a nut butter, and then like some plant-based milk, or you can leave the plant-based milk out, and then a little bit of berries. So that'll be good. Lunch can leave quinoa, which is a good whole grain, some roasted vegetables and beans, chickpeas, lentils, something like that. Dinner can be brown rice, lentils, and greens. I definitely just had that. That's actually going to be my meal tonight. My greens are actually Brussels sprouts with lentils and brown rice. So I love that. Snack can be like a piece of fruit with a little bit of nuts. And I always put the nuts in a little bit, like very, very little bit, because those can have a lot of saturated fat. And again, we went back and said that saturated fat is not good for insulin resistance, especially with diabetes. So we want to be very careful with that. But you can prepare it with any protein. But sometimes when you just want a little bit of snack that the nuts have the protein, the fat, and then add in the fruit, and that has the fiber, and that brings it all together. But we don't want to have a lot of it, okay? All right, so remember when you pair your foods, never have carbohydrates alone. You want to start with fiber or protein, so vegetables and beans first, like the salad with some beans on there. Don't add in a lot of extra fat with the dressings. Maybe put in some hummus. I like to add in hummus as my dressing. And then slow down. Don't be like my grandpa. Be more like my dad with their eating patterns, slowing down eating. Adjust your portion sizes. Don't just eliminate foods altogether, especially foods that you like. Just try to make it smaller. And then again, limit those liquid calories as much as possible. We don't want to be drinking our calories. And don't forget about sleep and stress, because again, that actually can cause your blood sugars to rise, cause issues with hormones and inflammation that counteracts what we're trying to do with our food. So if we're not sleeping well, stressing less, and exercising, we have all that. So it's not about restriction. We don't want you to think in that mind frame. We want to just think about restructuring, because your meals, when your meals are well structured, your body actually responds differently. Okay. So if this helped you, please share the video with your friends and family so that they can actually learn more about how to pair their meals and actually eat better. And like I said, I'll come back and put in some more resources for you all so you can actually do better. But if you need more guidance, more structure, because you're like, I've been trying to do this alone, definitely reach out to me. Atkins Enlightenment Lifestyle Medicine. We are a 100% virtual practice where you can go to www.dramandamd.com, go to our services page, book your appointment, and we'll be more than happy to service you. Okay. So imagine you're enjoying your meals again. You are not having those blood sugar spikes. You see so much improvement and you are feeling confident about your choices. No more discouragement because of those blood sugar spikes. It is possible, people. It is possible. Okay. Like, share the video, and I will see you next time. And I'll come back and answer any other questions that you may have. Thank you all for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.